Okay, from now on, let me tell you about my trip to Australia. The presentation will be given in this order. Last January, I traveled to Australia and stayed for a month. I used to travel abroad with my family or my friends, but I traveled alone this time. It was my first time traveling alone, so it was a new experience for me. I visited 5 cities during my month in Australia: Sydney, Gold Coast, Brisbane, Cairns, and Melbourne. I could see many amazing things and have various experiences. After the trip, I learned that Australia is an interesting country with beautiful nature. I went surfing in Australia for the first time in my life. I've lived most of my life in Busan, which is close to the sea, but I have never gone surfing before. My first challenge was done in Bondi Beach in Sydney, and the second was in Surfers Paradise Beach in Gold Coast. There were so many people in Bondi Beach. They were doing various activities such as suntanning, playing with balls, swimming, or surfing. When I saw people surfing, I couldn't help but fall in love with the cool wave riders. I decided to try surfing right away. It was not easy to understand the surfing class, which was spoken in English, but I could enjoy the class thanks to a kind instructor. The waves in Australia were so big that surfing was thrilling and exciting. An hour's drive from Sydney brought me to Wollongong. There, I went skydiving, and it was also the first time in my life. I chose Wollongong to skydive because it's located on the beach. I was looking forward to seeing the beautiful sea while flying in the sky. It looked so scary, but I challenged because it was one of my bucket lists. When I jumped off the plane, there were mountains, seas, and beaches in front of my eyes. The scenery was beyond description. It was a very thrilling experience. If I had had a little more money, I would have jumped one more time. As I sailed out of Cairns, I found the world's largest coral reef system called the Great Barrier Reef. I couldn't just pass by there, so I decided to scuba dive. I first practiced snorkeling in shallow water, and then I went scuba diving in the deep sea. The scenery under the sea was fantastic. Fish and turtles were passing in front of me, and coral reefs were dancing. Scuba diving was more frightening than I ever thought. I felt that scuba diving was much scarier than skydiving. When I was scuba diving, I felt like I was alone in the whole world, and the whole sea seemed to weigh on me. But the scenery in front of me was fantastic, so I thought it was mysterious. Rafting in Tule River was also an interesting experience. Tule River was in Cairns, and it was the best place for rafting because of its clear water and strong currents. It was very thrilling when I went down the rapids in the boat. When I passed close to the waterfall, I felt like I was in heaven. I got a sunburn because I didn't put on sunscreen, but it didn't matter. I felt like I was blowing away all my stress when enjoying the speed of the boat. Meat is very cheap in Australia, especially the black Angus in Australia tastes really good. I often had a barbecue party with people who I met during the trip. One day, I drank Jim Beam with the barbecue. I drank too much, so I almost got into trouble. Still, I can't drink whiskey after that day. Anyway, I really liked the meat, and I think the barbecue party was a good experience because I could be friends with many tourists. Australia is very famous for its wild animals, so there were zoos in all five cities that I visited. I went to almost every zoo because I had to see kangaroos and koalas in Australia. The animals in the zoos were a little different from our countries. The zoos were full of animals that I have never seen before. I took pictures with the animals and fed them. All the animals were cute and lovely. I also saw animals running in the wild outside the zoo. It was a special experience in Australia, which might not be done in Korea. I celebrated Australia Day in Sydney. Australia Day is a public holiday in Australia, commemorating the landing of the British sailors and migrants in Australia in 1788. On this day, a memorial event was held in Australia. The sound of a street parade in the morning marked the beginning of the day. Many people wore the Australian flag on their bodies and poured into the streets. Their faces were painted in the Australian flag. It reminded me of the 2002 World Cup in Korea. At night, fireworks exploded over the opera house and ferries with colorful lights passed through the harbor. It was the best fireworks I've ever seen. People enjoyed the party drinking beer. Everyone danced and sang. I took many pictures to remember this day. The bad thing about the trip was to see the shining stars at night in Fraser Island. The stars seemed to be pouring out of the sky. I lay on the beach and saw the Milky Way in the darkness. The stars of the southern hemisphere seen in Australia would not be seen anywhere in Korea. The guide told me to be careful because wild dingo could appear. But while I was looking at the stars, I completely forgot about dingo. With the sound of the sea and the wind, I lay on the beach for 2 hours. I tried to take pictures of the stars, but the pictures were not taken as I could see. It was a fantastic experience. I even felt that I didn't want to come back to Korea when I was there. It was the first time for me to travel alone, so I learned a lot from the trip. By seeing and experiencing something new, I realized that the world is so wide that I still have much to learn. Also, I challenged many things for the first time, so I gained confidence that I can do anything. When I have enough money and time someday, I want to travel abroad to many other countries. Thank you for listening.